Hello folks. So here's a video on some text wrap techniques. So I have set up in InDesign this document with filler text. There's basically 3 key techniques to doing text wrap. So the first involves an image with a transparent background. And remember, when you're doing something with a transparent background, you want it to if it's for a print piece, you need it to be a PSD, okay, instead of a PNG. So I'm going to File, Place. La-di-da. I'm so used to doing it with a keyboard shortcut that I forget where place is. There it is. Okay. And so I have this koala JPEG, but it's not going to work with the JPEG for this technique. So I want the PSD because that happens to have a transparent background. JPEGs cannot have a transparent background. Okay. Now, first of all, oops, stay on page 1. The image, when I place it's a little too big. So I'm going to undo that. And then I'm going to just show you this technique. I want him to take up like maybe a lot of the corner of the page. Okay, so when you just click and drag, when you initially place an image, I'm not doing anything. It's forcing the aspect ratio to stay consistent. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so now he's in front of the text. He's blocking out information, potentially, if this were real text instead of dummy text. And that's a problem. And so we want the text to wrap. So as you can see, I have the text wrap up. I brought it up by going Window to Text Wrap. And if you hover over these icons, you'll see no text wrap, wrap around bounding box, wrap around object shape, and which the object is the bounding box at this point. If I did this actually just to show you with like a circular image and did wrap around object shape, it would kind of wrap around the circle. It's not ideal, but just to show you kind of what that means, okay? So, but we want it to wrap around the panda, a more complex text wrap. All right, jump object, etc. So, because it has, the original image has a transparent background, I know it looks white, but actually here, here, let's just do this. Just to prove it has a transparent background, I'll make a box and send it to back, and there you can see the panda does have a transparent background. In fact, let's just make it sort of a weird cream color, just to kind of make the point a little bit. No, let's not. Okay, so, all right, make sure he's selected. And then you have to go to, keep it on here, wrap around object shape, but then you go to alpha channel. Alpha means transparency. So now the transparency channel is what it's detected of this image, and it's wrapping around the object. But as you can see, there's some awkwardness, right? So you don't want that awkwardness. Part of your job as a designer is to continually judge what's going on in the design and make it look better and more elegant and more intentional. So let's start by changing the view mode over here to preview. Okay. And first of all, we know that the text is too close to the fuzzy little guy. So over here, and notice my units and increments are set up to points and picas, which gives you a lot more granular units of measurement than inches. So let's just increase that. And as you can see, it's slowly moving away from his personal space and gives us a little bit more of an interesting shape around him. By the way, let's just save that as we go. If you don't know how to change the units of measurement, on the Mac, it's under InDesign. On the PC, it's under Edit Preferences, I believe. So here I go Preferences, and then I go to Units and Increments, and then here's where it might be set to inches or something. And picas and points are a subset of picas, so picas are fine to get that granular measurement. So now it still looks a little bit awkward. So let's try a couple things. We'll move him around. And if you move him kind of slowly when you click and drag, you can still see him as opposed to doing that. And it's jumpy. So actually that right there looks pretty great. Okay. But what if it doesn't? Let's just make something awkward. Okay. To make a point. Like, okay, so there's that, but we really want him here, say. Another thing you can do to avoid some of this is to make an invisible shape. So that's technique number 2. So if I just make this rectangle right here and just make it invisible by going over to my color swatches and changing the fill color to none. Okay. And then I'll go to text wrap on this object while it's selected, and maybe go wrap around bounding box or object shape. It's kind of the same div. So now it'll also wrap around that object. In fact, I could just stretch it out and then the problem is solved. Okay, so that's another way, using invisible shapes. What you have to be careful of is if all of a sudden you decide to move him, then you still have that weird thing going on there and you'd want to delete that. And so let's just kind of undo that. And actually, I sort of want this panda to bleed off the page because I've decided this is a bleed design. So I'm going to find that shape. It would probably be easier if I went into normal view. Find the shape and delete it. Okay, and then I'm going to make him kind of bleed off the page, go into preview mode to see how that looks, and make him just a little bit bigger. Okay, and maybe decrease. So there's just a lot of little things that you can do. So now though we have these like tiny little bits of text here, which does not look good, nor does it look good over here. So it's just something that you want to constantly adjust when you're using a sort of complex text wrap object. Okay, so that's that one. Now here's another method. Okay, so the text on this is yellow, light yellow, because the image I'm going to import is kind of dark. So I'm going to go File, Place, or Command or Control D, and I'm going to place this elephant image. Okay, and I want to place him kind of big. As you can see from the preview, it's a very wide image. So let's just see if I click once. Okay. I don't know what happened to him, to be honest with you. I don't know what's going on there. Let's try it again. Control D, elephant image. Let's just try this. I'll click and drag. Hang on. Let's pause the video and fix it. Okay, so what is going on there? Is it a layers thing? So let's try it again. File, Place, and find the elephant in the room. All right, I don't know why it didn't work before. And let's send him to back by going Object Arrange, Send to Back. So now he's behind the text. Okay, and I actually want to move him so he's over on the right side of the page. Okay, and I'm going to hit minus a couple times. I'm going to move him down a little bit. And now I want to make him kind of big because I want him to fill the whole full bleed of the page. Okay, and so, and I don't really care that much about the stuff behind him. I mean, it's very pretty, but this article's, you know, we want to focus on the elephant because that's the most interesting thing in the picture. So I'm just continuing to make him big. Okay, so now we've got that, and actually it's kind of a best practice just to crop stuff down a little bit once you have established that size. So I put it into the bleed view so I can bring the edges of the bounding box closer to where the bleed is. It just makes the file easier to work with. All right, so now I want the text to wrap around the elephant. Now I could make work for myself by putting in a new layer and then doing an invisible shape around the elephant. Or I could use a cool new feature in Adobe InDesign, and I'll show you what that is. So first I have to select the photo, and then I want, let's see, I think it's wraparound object shape. As you can see, that made the text disappear because I have the entire picture selected. Stay with me. So now if I go to select subject, somehow it read my mind because I didn't even click it, then it's like, in most pictures, it will know what the heck the subject is, which is pretty exciting. All right, so, and it does a pretty decent job of going around this elephant. It's not perfect, as you can see. So 2 ways to remedy that slight imperfection include, like, you can use the direct selection tool to, like, play with, you know, the shape that it has created. Or you can also do, like I said before, create an invisible shape. And like here, so say I want a headline on this page. So then I wouldn't want the text to take up so much space. And this is a 3-column text, okay? Now, this is a problem here, right? It's kind of awkward to have this text between his legs. So, and actually, but the text is short enough that, you know, we have enough room here, and you'd want to change the color of this text or find some other way to solve the problem of the white text against, or the light yellow text against white, but that's a sidebar. But say for whatever reason that you have to deal with this text, you can do the same thing you did before with the panda bear, which is add an invisible shape, or let's go back to the elephant. Okay, you can use the direct selection tool, I think. Of course, now it's not showing. There we go. And let's see if it has some pen tool options, like in Adobe Illustrator. Delete anchor point tool. So if I delete this anchor point and that one, and that one, and that one, it's sort of connecting the dots in a wider way. It's still not fully solving my problem, but it's beginning to. And this is really kind of going deep down the rabbit hole, but I just want you to be aware of these options when you're making your piece, right? So if I just keep stubbornly arguing with it, tat, 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 I can get rid of those tats. Now it sounds like I'm talking about tattoos. But anyway, so that is how you wrap around an existing object in a picture. And again, like up here, I would probably just add an oval, an invisible oval, rather than adding to the elephant. Okay, so do that, wrap around object shape. Okay, so that's starting to look better. And then with the elephant, remember, you still like maybe want to give him some space. User modified path now. That's interesting. So it's actually not giving me the option to tell it how much space I want around it. Let's try re-importing it and see if that changes. Okay, that was abrupt, but I didn't want to have you sit there while I was futzing around with re-importing him and deleting all the shapes. So again, we have this text that we want to wrap around the elephant. So we'll select the elephant and let's just keep it in normal mode for now. Select wrap around object shape and then go select subject. And that's kind of how you do that. Oh, but see, once you do it like the first time, now it's allowing me to add more space around him. Okay, and let's just have a look at that in preview mode. Okay, and let's unselect him. So it's starting to get somewhere, but you want to combine those techniques that I showed you with an invisible shape or with using the direct selection tool and or the pen tool to alter the shape around him or to add more, depending on what you need to do in your newsletter. It might not get so complex as this, but I wanted you to understand some of these techniques. Thank you very much.